Joanna Gibner went missing on September 13, 1996. Apparently, on that day, the woman had an argument with her husband, Mark. She later disappeared without a trace. The search for her continued for many years. Today, we know that the girl was murdered by her husband, and her body ended up in Lake Dywicki. Joanna Gibner was born on June 25, 1973. She was Pani Danuta's only child. She grew up without her father, who died when Joanna was 6 years old. Her mother was all the world to the girl. When Joanna's mother was 29 years old, she met Jack. The woman wanted to create a full family for her daughter and remarried. The man drank a lot and did not like his adopted daughter. As a result, the couple quarreled frequently. Then Joanna began to rebel. Undoubtedly, she was going through a difficult period in her life. She graduated from high school. She quickly went to work because she wanted to be independent. She worked at several places. She worked part-time at a department store. She dreamed of one day becoming a journalist. Joanna had no luck in love. She was very sensitive, and as a result, she worried a lot about her problems. In May 1996, Joanna met Mark. This man was independent and had his own car. Joanna hoped for a better life with him. After 3 months of dating, the couple decided to get married. She was 23 years old, and he was 21. They settled in Ulston. Unfortunately, the young people did not get along in character. It was obvious that the young couple were not at all suited to each other. The dramatic incident took place during the wedding, when the guests were already drunk. Mark's family reportedly put up a fight, and Joanna's mother-in-law hit her. The newly married husband did not stand up for his wife. Shortly after the wedding, Joanna came to see her mother. She complained that Mark had tried to strangle her. As a result, she became afraid of him and wanted to divorce him. However, she then disappeared without a trace. The worst happened 3 weeks later. A fight broke out between the couple, during which the man toppled his wife onto the sofa bed and strangled her until she stopped breathing. The man disposed of his wife's body and cheated the police for years. He played the depressed man. He even did a TV show and addressed his wife, "Come back to me or give me a divorce." No one suspected that this was a ruthless killer. Pani Danuta learned of her daughter's disappearance from her son-in-law. The woman was in the hospital at the time. The man said that Joanna had not returned home for the night. From that moment on, Pani Danuta constantly felt that something bad was going to happen. She thought Mark had hurt her daughter. Relatives reported the young woman missing to the police. On September 13, 1996, Joanna Gibner disappeared without a trace. Many hypotheses have been advanced about the case. According to one of them, the woman had another argument with her husband. Around 3 p.m., she left the house. That is what her husband Mark claimed. However, there were no witnesses who could confirm this. Another hypothesis was that she had gone to the sea or abroad. Undoubtedly, there was also speculation that the missing woman was dead. The police could find no evidence that a murder had taken place. Days, weeks, months passed, but the missing Joanna still could not be found. Mark published advertisements begging. He begged his wife to return. Joanna Gibner was only 23 years old at the time of her disappearance. There was no evidence that a murder had been committed. From the beginning, Mark's behavior raised doubts with Joanna's mother, but the woman kept thinking she would find her daughter. Joanna Gibner was as lost as a stone in water. Her mother was sure something bad had happened to her daughter. Every day she struggled to find her daughter. She longed to know where her only and beloved child was. Young Joanna's disappearance remained a big mystery for 7 years. During that time, Mark found himself another woman. He forgot about his missing wife and did not participate in the search for her. He began a new phase in his life. Only September 16, 2003, the man confessed to the murder of Joan. Mark's new girlfriend showed up unexpectedly to the police and decided to break the conspiracy of silence. She testified that during the altercation, Mark had threatened to do to her what he had done to his wife. Joanna Gibner was murdered. The man confessed to investigators about the crime and described in great detail what he had done to his wife. Mark threw the woman on the bed during an argument, sat on top of her, and then clasped his hands around Joanna's neck and strangled her. The girl tried to defend herself. Her husband squeezed her neck until he felt that Joanna had stopped defending herself. He sat her down on the bed and then put her body in the couch. It lay in the garage for several days. He decided he had to cover up the crime and get rid of the body. He packed the corpse into a large sack, and since the legs didn't fit, he broke them and put them on his chest. Finally, he carried the sack out of the house and took it out on a cart. He weighed it down with scrap metal or garbage, and then took a boat to the Dywicki Lakes and dumped his wife's corpse. His brother, who lowered Mark down with a rope, participated. The men then deflated the boat, packed it into the car, and drove off to drink beer. Lake Dywicki was searched twice by divers. Dozens of people tried unsuccessfully to find Joanna's corpse. Despite this, Mark was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. It was the first indirect trial in Polish history. In September 2018, after serving his sentence, Mark was released. 6 months later, he died unexpectedly. Joanna's body has still not been found. 24 years later, a breakthrough occurred. A diver, Marcel Korkus, became involved in the case. It was he who found the body of Kacper from Nowogrodzic in the river. On May 27, 2020, he fished a bag of Joanna's remains out of the lake. Mrs. Danuta was able to bury her daughter with dignity. Unfortunately, what happened in her life remains a nightmare that cannot be forgotten. The killer took everything from her. He took her beloved Joanna. A month later, the 23-year-old was buried next to her father in the cemetery in Olsztyn.